Hi, this is the video for Tuesday, February 9th for 12th grade English. It's delayed. I apologize. I thought I had uploaded this and it did not upload, and I'm remaking it. So here are the slides for the week that can show you what we did. Today we were centered on small investigations into memes and judgments that we want to learn a little bit more about before we make our decision. We did start the day with the Black History Month video from Miss Rocco. She has these every day for the month of February, which is Black History Month. This one was on Albemarle County's integration of schools in the 60s. And it's really good and worth watching. And we talked a little bit about our experience with schools in Albemarle County. This link will take you to the rest of the lesson, week 2 slideshow. And once you're on it, you go down to day 2. Day 2 is Tuesday. So in day 2, we just reviewed our objectives. We often form opinions before we have evidence. What's the problem with that? How does that wrongly disservice people and ourselves? And we looked at some examples for how this happens. Actually, I skipped that one and moved on to Van Halen. So I tasked your classmates with little 5-minute activities to find out what's the full story behind these claims. The first claim was, when Van Halen toured, they required M&Ms to be available backstage, but with all the brown ones removed. Is this true or false? And the answer is, it's true. So what happens when people hear that is they automatically start to make a judgment. That's a natural thing that we do. We try to figure out the problem. What we tried to do today in class was keep researching to find out why, not based on our own thinking, but why based on the facts of this case. If we did it based on our own thinking, this is where it leads people into believing that maybe Van Halen is racist because of their treatment of M&Ms. And that's kind of where people's heads go. But in fact, Van Halen toured at the time in the 80s. They're a major rock band. I'm sorry, I forgot to say that. If you don't know their music, you might know it. They sing that really famous song, Jump, Go Ahead and Jump. All right, you should look it up. And you might know them because they're pretty famous. So when they were touring in the 80s, they had the most complicated lighting system at the time. And their sound system was also complicated. So they would get to venues and find out that the venue contractor hadn't read the contract in full and couldn't accommodate their system. And so the whole thing would go off. The concert would be a huge problem. Van Halen needed the concert venues, places like, imagine, like John Paul Jones. They needed the people in charge of the venue to totally understand how their lighting and sound would work. And so they made really specific choices for their food backstage, including a little line that says, we require M&Ms, but we want all the brown ones removed, as a test to see if the venue directors had read the contract. So Van Halen would get to a place, and if they got backstage and saw M&Ms with the brown ones removed, then they knew the venue directors were really diligent and had read every word of the contract. If they got backstage and none of that was available, they knew they might have a problem. So it was a quick way for them to test how in the know or how much research their venue director had done with their contract. All right, we did it again, this time with this quote by Larry Bird. And similarly, it's a quick meme. We don't really know much. It helps have some background knowledge of Larry Bird, and some of your classmates helped us build that. He was one of the greatest basketball players in the NBA, one could say, of all time. He played for Boston and ended up coaching the Pacers, and he's sort of still in the organization as a big deal. So this quote was attributed to him on Twitter. Back in my day, the game had fundamentals and honor the commander-in-chief. Now it's a bunch of radical fundamentalists who dishonor the flag and cross and only care about looking flashy. Just shut up and play the damn game. Did Larry Bird say this? So we spent 5 minutes investigating that. In fact, he did not. And we talked about that. So this was really student directed. I don't have slides explaining the answers because students give me the answers. But what we learned here is there's no real source for this quote. just kind of appears one day on the internet. There's no interview, there's no video broadcast where Larry Bird was heard. There's nothing that attributes this to any particular place. So if you can't find out where or when or to whom someone said a quote, it might just be that the quote was fabricated. Larry Bird and his organizations deny this outright and say this never happened. They made this up. The last reason of evidence we talked about, and this moved into kind of reputation, is it just doesn't sound like him. The students in our class who understood Larry Bird's character a little bit more were like, that's not the kind of stuff he says. He says crazy stuff, and he can get kind of mad about the game, but he never makes political statements. That's just not the way that he engages. So it would be the first time that he did make a political statement and done in a way that has no source attributed to it. So we tried to just remind ourselves how easy it is to just make up something about somebody else, especially someone famous who you don't know. How simple it is to sit down and pretend like they said something. And that is the part that we want to kind of attack and be more knowledgeable about. So we did it one more time, but this time it's related to the STEM, and this is more linked to yesterday's class, to Monday's. In this particular judgment, a woman sued Starbucks for putting too much ice in her iced coffee. So it sounds like yesterday's, right? A woman was burned by McDonald's. It's kind of like, maybe, but there's got to be more to that story, right? Actually, for this, there isn't. This woman did just sue Starbucks because she thought there was too much ice in the iced coffee. It was a series of suits. There's a number of people, or what they call plaintiffs, people who complain. Plain is the word there that's linked. Brought this suit against Starbucks, and a federal judge ruled that this whole thing was not a case. So they dismissed the case. It never got to trial. The federal judge says Starbucks is not ripping you off when it puts lots of ice in your iced tea. So if you're reading these now, your homework or your async work is to read this article. It's pretty short, and get a sense for why this decision was made, and it gives you the full details of why was she suing in the first place. It brings in another guy who was suing as well. You don't have to look at the judge's decision, but it is interesting, that legal language. What we're asking is you read the full article here, and then you move into your STEM, and you show us your knowledge that you gained by answering today's STEM. Chicago residents sued Starbucks for their ice policy because, and then but, and then so. So this is how you'll kind of give us your knowledge by answering this STEM. All right, and that was Tuesday's class. I'm not posting this until Saturday morning, so don't worry if you haven't done it by now. That's my fault. I always want to get the videos up by the end of the day, or at least within 24 hours of the class, so that's on me. Thank you for your patience.